Frank, you
Well,
were mentioning the Saharan dust situation, and we've kind of talked about this early season because it seems that we've seen that be more prevalent in the early half of the season last year, even the year before. This year, it seemed to kind of inhibit. Explain a little bit about that. Just kind of expand on what you're talking about when you talk about Saharan dust and the Saharan air layer, those types of things that are kind of play a factor into what happens. It seems like in the early season, and not so much as we get into the latter half of the season.
right. The Saharan dust, what I mean by that is that over the African continent, that's where our tropical waves come from that become our tropical cyclones in the Atlantic basin typically. We get them through other mechanisms too, as like with Chantal, which formed as low pressure developed along an old stationary front that was decaying. But a lot of our storms come from these tropical waves coming off of Africa, the technical name being African easterly wave. Those that's where they come from, but they come from the what they call the Sahel region in Africa, which is where which is like over the part from like 10 to 20 degrees north over the African continent. That you'll get a band of thunderstorms along the intertropical convergence zone there, and disturbances with called those tropical waves develop in that area. But you get those storms to develop out there, or those tropical waves to develop out there. But to the north of there, of course, you have the Saharan Desert. And of course, you have a very dry air mass all the time over the Sahara. That sometimes get pushed out over the Atlantic too, and sometimes with strong winds occur over that as well, kicking up dust over the Sahara, and you'll get a big cloud of dust come out. So that's what where that those the Saharan dust storms come from. There, finally, I got the satellite to load up there. This haziness you see here north of all these thunderstorms along the intertropical convergence zone down here, that's the African dust that's coming out off of Africa now, coming westward off of the Sahara Desert. Now, the dust itself does not necessarily inhibit the tropical cyclones from forming. It's a symptom that of dry air being present, a really dry air mass. And tropical cyclones don't like that at all. If they pull in some of that dry air, it causes them to weaken or struggle to gain strength. As they ingest that dry air. So that's one of the things we look for when you're considering whether something's trying to develop out there over the Atlantic, is how much moisture there is in the air mass out there, and the more moisture you have in general in the environment, the easier time the tropical cyclone is going to have developing and strengthening. But if you have a Saharan air mass out there, then that tropical cyclone is going to struggle to develop.